all the teams, all the time. It's Pro Football Wire's nightly recap with John Lund. Make sure you follow us on social media at PFB Wire and subscribe. Like and turn on your alerts on YouTube at Pro Football Wire. Now with the latest news around the NFL, here's Johnny.
What's happening? It's your Monday Night Football recap. John Lund with you at PFB Wire. Make sure that you're following us. Pro Football Wire on YouTube. At PFB Wire everywhere else, especially X. Make sure you hit X because we put up a bunch of videos, shorts, shows, fun highlights, funny stuff, breaking news, rumors, all those kind of things. If it has to do with football, all the teams, all the time, like you said right there. And Sunday night shows, Sunday preview shows, Monday night shows, Thursday night shows, shorts throughout the week. And again, on X, Instagram, all those places, you can get a lot of NFL news at PFB Wire. So at Pro Football Wire on YouTube, where you are probably watching right now, or maybe you could be watching on our X channel at PFB Wire. You could be watching at John Lund Radio. That is my personal handle. However and wherever you are, thank you very much for joining us as we recap the 49ers 20-9 victory over the Carolina Panthers. And I don't know how the 49ers keep doing it. Robert Saleh is probably going to get a job out of this whole thing. Kyle Shanahan deserves Coach of the Year consideration. Christian McCaffrey leads the NFL in touches. You can see him on the cover right there. And he's always asked about this. Let me get myself up on the stage. He's always asked about this. And it's funny because I talked to him throughout training camp. And he told me once and for all, he's like, look, I'm sick of the questions about, am I healthy? 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 Got them all through camp, got them all in the offseason. Kind of took us media aside down there in Santa Clara and said, look, I am healthy. And he kind of looked me square in the eyes. I was standing to his right. And from that point forward, I just said, you know what? I'm not going to ask him if he's healthy anymore. And everybody has, and I do lots of radio shows during the week and podcasts and all these different things. And people, for one of the first questions they asked is how healthy. This is the beginning of the year. How healthy is McCaffrey? And I'm like, I'm telling you, he's healthy. Leads the NFL in touches, one of the tops as far as total yardage. He's going to get 1,000. It was cool. I got a great Roger Craig story for you that we'll wait till later, but they showed him if you watch the Monday Night Football game before the game of the guy that should absolutely positively be in the Hall of Fame. There's only 3,000 guys, 1,000 through the air, 1,000 on the ground. It's McCaffrey in 2019, Marshall Faulk with the Rams, and Roger Craig, the ultimate Niners back in that West Coast offense. And McCaffrey's got a great chance to do it this year if he stays healthy. So we'll get into all those things, but thank you for joining us post Monday night. We'll talk both about the futures of the Niners and the Panthers. Take a look, as you can see, the lead story, the Monday Night Football recap, the NFC picture. Game balls, we'll give those out, not the ones that got punched tonight. We'll do that last. Bryce Young's future with the Panthers. I was more encouraged before the game than I was after. Key stats of the game, the nut punch at the end, Trevon Moehrig and the former Raider safety and Juwan Jennings got into it a little bit, and Jennings is high charged anyway. And then we'll take you through a couple of stories in the NFL, including Pete Carroll talks about firing Chip Kelly and the New York Giants fire the defensive coordinator. This is the time of the year where they do those things. So we'll discuss all those things. I have fun video for you tonight. Kyle Shanahan, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy on his 3 first-half interceptions, all those things. So stay right here. And again, I'll tell you, please make sure you're subscribed and tell your friends at Pro Football Wire on YouTube, at PFB Wire on all social media, especially X, where we put a ton of stuff during the day, videos, highlights, rumors, fun videos, live shows, shorts, all those things on X as well. So make sure that you follow us on any of those social media channels that you see at the bottom of your screen there at PFB Wire. I want to say hello to anyone that is watching and anybody that is hanging out, like JP from the 510. It is great to see you. And it is, great. You said great to hear your voice. Thank you very much. It is great to be heard. So thank you, JP from the 510, which is the fine Oakland area code. So thanks to JP for coming out tonight as well. And again, if you want to jump in the chat room, have a chat about the NFL, have a chat about Monday Night Football, that would be great. Come on over from X, whether you're watching at PFB Wire or at John Lund Radio, and come over to YouTube and make sure that you're subscribed. So there we go. All right, let's start with the recap, 20-9, and we'll show you some numbers in just a second, but it's pretty simple, this game. Carolina had an opportunity in the first half. The Niners get some points on the board early, and they get a touchdown. And Carolina has an opportunity because of a couple of underthrown and late and behind balls by Brock Purdy. Purdy said after the game that it has nothing to do with the toe, nothing to do with the injury, nothing to do with being out. Look, I don't buy that. Players don't always tell the truth. They don't want to tell you that they're hurting. They're never going to tell you that. What would be the point of Brock Purdy saying, yeah, I'm hurt? I mean, you're just going to tell other teams how to attack you, whatever. But after the game, he made it a point that it wasn't the toe or anything like that. But I'll chalk it up to inexperience for this year, being still a little bit rusty. Came back against Arizona. That was a laugher last week, 44-22, and Arizona was never in that game. I was at that game. It was a 49ers home game in Arizona. I've never seen anything like it in 30 years of doing this. But anyway, I digress. Both balls that were intercepted. Nice plays by the DBs. Both the first one by J.C. Horn and the second one by Michael Jackson, the former Seahawk. And they made the interceptions. They made the plays. I'm not saying they weren't, but they were right there. If they were up higher and ahead of the receivers, their completions. But I think that's part of Brock Purdy just not being in the game, not making an excuse for him. They were bad throws. And then the third one, that's a bad, to be honest with you, I don't say this often. No one says this often. Not a really good play design by Kyle Shanahan, because what it allowed J.C. Horn to do is come all the way over from the other corner spot because there was no one for him to cover. So he was able to actually play as an extra safety. And as you heard Troy Aikman say during the broadcast, Brock Purdy's not looking for that. You have about 2.3, 2.2, 2.3 seconds to read the defense and throw the ball where it's supposed to go. He doesn't have a macro view of the field. He's going like this, scanning. And so what he's expecting is he's watched tape. Okay, this guy's going to be here. This guy's going to be here. I don't have to worry about the opposite side corner. He's not thinking about that. Therefore, he doesn't see him, and he makes that throw. But because Horn had nobody to cover on the other side, came all the way over, made a really heads-up play and a great interception. Problem for Carolina in that first half when Brock Purdy went 14-23 for 123 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions in the first half, is off those 3 interceptions, the Panthers got 3 points. 2 of the 3 were in 49ers territory. 1 of the 3 was already in the red zone. 1 stopped a scoring drive for the 49ers. 1, Carolina got all the way down inside the 5-yard line, and Bryce Young threw an interception to Jair Brown, who had 2 interceptions, safety for the 49ers. If you remember Jair Brown and you're a Niners fan, say interception in the Super Bowl versus Patrick Mahomes. Should have won that game. Anyway, again, I digress. But that was the big story in the first half. Carolina gets 3 points, 2 on the side of the in 49ers territory, 1 in 49ers red zone, and they do not score a touchdown. They only get 3 points off of those 3 turnovers. So the Niners go to half at the lead. Second half, he settled down a little bit, got the ball in McCaffrey's hands, and the Niners walk out with a victory. But it would have been very, very easy for Carolina, who, for the first time in a long time, that was a big game for Carolina. When's the last time that Carolina played a big game? The NFC Championship game in Seattle when they had Steve Smith. I mean, they haven't played a big game in a long time. They would have won. If they would have won tonight, they would have went 7-5 and led the NFC South a little bit later on in the show, as you see up on the board there. We'll look at the NFC picture, but that was a big game for Carolina. And their defense kind of held up their end of the bargain for the most part. I mean, you give up 20 points, you should be in a lot of games, but their offense just could not get it going. Part of it is Robert Saleh, which when I give out game balls, we'll talk about him a little bit more. The defensive coordinator of the 49ers, who may be a head coach again, of course, got fired from the Jets. He may be a head coach again. He's certainly going to be in the cycle, but he is a great defensive coordinator. The guys that they've lost this year, if you don't cover the 40, or if you don't follow the 49ers religiously, is ridiculous. They have the most money. They have the most dead money. They have the most injured money. We'll get into that a little bit later. But as far as the recap is concerned, it comes down to a couple of different things. Carolina in the first half could not capitalize on the turnovers. And then in the second half, the 49ers stopped turning it over. The defense actually turned it up. The big stat, write this down, impress your friends, especially if you're in the Bay Area. Clelin Ferrell, who, of course, was with the 49ers a couple of years ago, failed Raiders draft pick, goes to Washington. They pick up Clelin Ferrell. He had their first sack late in the fourth quarter. The 49ers had their first sack in 86 dropbacks with that sack in the fourth quarter. So not all is well with the 49ers, with the Bosa injury and the Mikael Williams injury, their first-round pick out of Georgia. their defensive line does not get pressure on the quarterback, which I'm going to talk about Bryce Young's future a little bit later. Again, you can see that on the board. They don't get any kind of pressure on the opposing quarterback, and yet, because defensively Robert Saleh pushes all the right buttons, they held Carolina, despite 3 turnovers, to 9 points tonight, and that is your storyline, and that is your recap. Again, 20-9. Love to hit me up on YouTube, and again, if you're watching on X tonight, thank you very much, at PFB Wire and at John Lund Radio. As far as the NFC picture is concerned, let's give you a little NFC picture here as I pop a screen up here. And if you watch the show on any regular basis, who knows what's going to pop up here when I pop this up. Could be the playoff picture, could be something that you need to be 18 to look at. Nope, got it. All right, so let me just look at the NFC just because. We talked about this yesterday. You may disagree because you might be a 49ers fan watching tonight, but the Rams are the best team in football right now. They're 9-2. The Eagles, I just think, are too inconsistent. Lose to Dallas after having a 21-zip lead. We're going to find out, maybe not what it was a couple of years ago in Philadelphia when the wheels just completely came off, but we're going to find out something about Philadelphia at the end of the year. Why A.J. Brown's so pissed off, why Jalen Hurts just doesn't look right. There's just something not right. And when you win championships, there's chemistry, and you can just see it, as a fan, and you feel it. There's just something wrong with the Eagles. The Bears at 3, I do not trust. The Buccaneers, a sigh of relief tonight. And by the way, big story in the NFL, Baker Mayfield with a sprained AC joint in his non-throwing shoulder, and you're going to have to monitor that thing. They've got Arizona coming in this week. They could beat Arizona. I don't know. Name me a former Bucs quarterback. Doug Williams could come out of retirement and probably win that game against Arizona, but they're going to need Baker Mayfield sooner rather than later, or Carolina could still win that division. Seahawks at 5, I think they're the second best team in the NFC if Sam Darnold can hold his side of the bargain up. The Packers I really like defensively, but Jordan Love is, I don't trust Jordan Love. He has not made the steps. There's the Niners sitting at 7. And then if the playoffs started today, and I just got news, they don't, the Lions wouldn't be a playoff team, but I think that they're a big threat in the NFC as well. There's the Panthers, their blown opportunity. No Jerry Jones. The Cowboys are not in the playoff hunt. Kirk Cousins looked better than Michael Penix. Maybe he should have played, and the rest of the teams, who cares? So that is your NFC playoff picture right there. And the 49ers sit there despite all the injuries at now 8-4, and they are and would be a playoff team. And this is where it's going to get fun. Look at the playoff picture right there. Let me pop this a little bit closer for you. There's the playoff picture right there. So the Rams at 9-2, the Hawks at 8-3, the Niners at 8-4. Don't worry about Arizona. Down the stretch, the Rams still have to go to Seattle and take on the Seahawks. The Seahawks still have to come to San Francisco and take on the 49ers. So this thing is far from over, as those 3 teams are going to battle it out. I keep saying that the 49ers aren't going to stay in this thing, but they keep doing it. So whether it's Kyle Shanahan, whether it's Robert Saleh, combination of everything, they just have a great culture. Covered the 49ers for 10 years, pre-half and post-game, and they just have a culture. And they just win. George Kittle talked about it after the game. I mean, they're just, despite all these injuries, they're just not going to fall out of this whole thing. In fact, this is what they kept showing on Monday Night Football. I mean, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, they're not playing. And you look at the team that took the field, Mikael Williams, first-round pick, not playing. They were down at Tatum Bethune, who took over for Fred Warner, not playing. Curtis Robinson, third-string linebacker, was one of their starters tonight. I mean, and they're not getting a pass rush. Jair Brown stepped up big time. He had an okay year, but he had 2 interceptions tonight. The corners played exceptionally well. Ronaldo Green, the second-year corner out of Florida State. They don't even throw at Diamador Lenore anymore. You notice that? They don't throw at Hyena. They don't throw at number 2. It's like, we're just going to go somewhere else. They just don't throw at them. So give the Niners a ton of credit. Give Robert Saleh a ridiculous amount of credit. In fact, I just showed you the NFC picture, so let's go to your game balls. This is game ball number 1. Like if we had 3 stars like we do in hockey, right? Here's game balls. This guy's number 1 right there. I mean, without him, I don't know what this defense is doing. I don't know, smoke, mirrors, duct tape, rubber cement, whatever the case may be. Robert Saleh is going to be a head coach in this league again next year. And I know Robert a little bit. He's just a leader of men. He'll call your defense. He's a leader of men. There's going to be a number of openings. Look, if I'm Arizona, for example, Jonathan Gannon, I'd put another defensive guy in there and let him build my defense. He had a good defense in New York when he left. They just couldn't figure out the quarterback position, and Aaron Rodgers sabotaged everything he touched in New York. But Robert Saleh is going to be back in the head coaching cycle, and that's bad news for 49ers fans, but there's just nothing else you can do about it. Let me give you the stats as we look at game balls here, because I'm going to play a post-game video for you after the game from Christian McCaffrey. And it's just funny that everybody asks him, but here's the biggest key. And you look up at Brock Purdy, by the way. I'm not giving him a game ball for those 3 interceptions, but in the first half, he was 14 of 23 for those 3 interceptions. In the second half, 9 of 9 in the second half and no interceptions. That makes it a lot easier. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan just said, look, we're playing great defense. Will you stop fucking turning the ball over? That was the halftime speech, which are vastly overrated, by the way. But here's your biggest thing. Christian McCaffrey, the former Panther, you can see right there, 24 carries, 89 yards. Keeping to his average this year at about 3.6, which is the lowest of his career. But you just stay with it. And then you see those 7 catches down there. So for McCaffrey, it's the amount of times that he touches the ball, your best offensive player. How many times does he touch the ball? Well, he touched it 31. Okay, conversely, look at Carolina. Who's their best offensive player? Rico Dowdle, who's having a great year. 6 carries, 4 catches. So he touches the ball 10 times. McCaffrey touches the ball 31 times. Dave Canales has done a great job in Carolina. He is a leader of men. I don't know if you saw the halftime interview, but that's just how he is. I don't know if you've ever heard him speak after games or before games or during the week. Dave Canales was in Seattle under Pete Carroll, was in Tampa, the offensive coordinator there for a while. He's been on some really good staffs, and you can tell he learned a lot. But he is just he reminds me of Robert Saleh a lot in that he can just tell he's a leader of men. But the game plan couldn't have been, let's have Bryce Young throw it about 30 times, and let's have Rico Dowdle just touch it 10. You're not going to win games like that. Christian McCaffrey touched the ball 31 times. So give a game ball to Christian McCaffrey. He's number 2. Robert Saleh is number 1. And then I think you got to give number 3. You go down here to Jair Brown. 2 interceptions for Jair Brown, including one in the end zone off of a Brock Purdy interception. So Jair Brown had 5 tackles. He was the 3rd leading tackler, and he had 2 interceptions, including one in the end zone. So those are your 3 stars of the game. We're going to get into Bryce Young in a minute, so keep in mind the 18 of 29 for 169, and he threw 2 interceptions as well. We're going to talk about Bryce Young a little bit later on in the show, but there's a little bit of the numbers. So again, game balls, I'm going to go Robert Saleh 1, I'm going to go Christian McCaffrey 2, and I'm going to go Jair Brown number 3. Here is McCaffrey after the game. Somebody asked him again, how do you get so many touches and stay so healthy?
Yeah, I mean, I feel great, physically I feel good. Again, I think, I work hard. We got a great staff out here, but, I say this all the time, and God is good, and I feel really blessed to be able to be playing football right now and to have as much load as I've had and continue to play. I give all the glory to God.
Good. Say it with me. Christian McCaffrey is healthy. Christian McCaffrey is healthy. Now, I don't want to jinx the guy, but this has been going on since training camp. It's been going on actually since OTAs when, like I said, he stared at me and said, don't ask me. No, he didn't say, don't ask me that again, but he looked at me with these piercing eyes and said, I'm 100% healthy. I don't know how to make it any more clear because everybody looked at him creeping up on 30 and was like, he's got to break down. He's got to break down. Look, the dude's a freak. He could get hurt tomorrow. He was hurt last year, but I told all the fantasy football people that would ask me because they knew I was going down to camp and covering the Niners. So they were like, oh, is he healthy? Is he healthy? Dudes would ask me from other teams, is he healthy? I'm like, look, he looked me in the eyes, dead steely-eyed, and said, look, I am healthy. So I said he's healthy. And here he is, like I told you. Now, I'm not saying he should have been the number 1 pick in your fantasy draft, but I told you he should have been top 5. So there you go. We'll check in with everybody. It is great to see you, JP, from the 510. It is great to see you, 5'4". Love to see you. What's up? Dom, it has been a while. This is one of my favorite people in the world. 5043, here's the thing about Saleh. I'm glad you said Saleh is a terrible head coach. I wouldn't agree with you, but here's what I would tell you. He's got to be extremely careful in what he does in this offseason. Because what happens is, as a head coach, Bill Belichick coached the Cleveland Browns. Is he a terrible head coach? Well, he is now, but he wasn't for a long time, and he might have been the greatest head coach of all time. Mike Shanahan coached the Raiders first. Is he a good coach in Oakland? Because he was a good coach in Denver. My point is that just like when players go to certain organizations, it's ownership down, man. I don't care who Mark Davis hires as a head coach. The Raiders are going to suck. I don't care who the Bidwells hire as a head coach in Arizona. They're going to suck. It starts at the top. It doesn't start with the head coach. It starts with the ownership. I don't care if we're talking sports, non-sports, whatever the case may be. Ownership down. And you can hire a great head coach, a potentially great head coach, and he's not going to be great if everything around him is shit. And that's what's going on with the Raiders and the Cardinals and a bunch of teams that are bad every single year in the NFL, in life, in the NBA, in Major League Baseball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not going to label Robert Saleh with he's not a good head coach because Robert Saleh is a leader of men. The Jets are a horrible organization. That's the deal. I say this all the time. If you're a Jets fan, what do you get out of being a Jets fan? I'm just curious if you're a Jets fan watching tonight. What do you get out of being a Jets fan? Nothing? I mean, the last time they won the Super Bowl was 1969. Nice. But other than that, the year, it's not great. They haven't done a whole lot. They haven't had a lot of great head coaches. And so I'm going to give Robert Saleh a pass because the organization is garbage and Woody Johnson is a bad owner. That's what the Jets are. And Aaron Rodgers took him down. I'm not making an excuse for Robert Saleh. I think the second time around for a lot of head coaches, they learn a lot and they're very selective in the job that they take. So to me, what Saleh is going to do is he's not going to automatically be a head coach. He's not going to be so desperate to go to a place. He's going to make sure he can succeed. The first time you get an offer, you're like, well, if I get all this money, Robert Saleh is set for life. He's making good money being a defensive coordinator, don't get me wrong, but when you're a head coach, you get paid long after you get fired. You're going to be fine. So Robert Saleh is not going to just take any old coaching job. I'm desperate. I got to take a job. He's fine. He's set for life. Now, he's got 1 million kids, if you didn't know that. So, and they all got to go through college and everything else. So, yeah, he's going to need a few bucks in his pocket. But I think Robert Saleh has the ability to be a great head coach because I know him. He's a great leader of men. And he's just got to wait for the right organization. He can be a defensive coordinator forever, and he's a great one. But there's certain defensive coordinators, and I'll give you this too. Certain guys are great coordinators and not great head coaches. Kyle Shanahan's a great offensive mind that's a great head coach. I know he hasn't won a championship. He will. But he's a great coordinator, great head coach. Norv Turner was a great offensive coordinator, couldn't be a head coach. There are certain defensive coordinators who can't be a head coach. Like, I don't know why Steve Spagnuolo of the Chiefs hasn't gotten another opportunity to be a head coach because he's a hell of a defensive coordinator. But maybe that's just what he is. You know, so you can be one or the other. I think Saleh is a great defensive coordinator who has the opportunity to be a great head coach. But he better take the right job because after 2, you're not going to be able to say, well, you know, I chose 2 bad organizations. By the second one, they're going to say, well, we don't think you can coach. I think. Anyway, tangent on Robert Saleh. All right. Monday Night Football recap, 20-9, the Niners over the Panthers. NFC picture we gave you. Game balls we gave you. Bryce Young's future. And again, I'm not going to base it on tonight. 18-29, 169, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Here becomes the problem to me. Again, he's very small. He hasn't gotten hurt yet, but I would be a little bit nervous turning my team over to him. And the reason I'm bringing this up is the Panthers are going to have a decision to make here. And I'm looking at Bryce Young and I'm going, okay, they're now 6-6. I'd have pegged Carolina for being a top 5 drafting team, maybe winning 2-3 games, something like that. I didn't think they'd be a good team. They're better defensively than we thought. They had a lot of injuries tonight, including J.C. Horn, who had 2 first-half interceptions. He went out. So, look, that hurt their team. And they're trying to improve. I mean, their offensive line's just okay, but pressure wasn't a big issue for Bryce Young tonight. He had opportunities. He misses throws. At Alabama, he was so extremely accurate. He's not really that in the NFL. He's very small. He needs those throwing lanes. And not only is he's not Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is not small. Russell Wilson's short and thick. And you need to be that. Jaden Daniels scares me in this way. Bryce Young is extremely, extremely small and thin. Has an okay arm, not great. McMillan is a great ad. He made a nice touchdown catch tonight. They still need more wide receivers. They don't have much at the tight end position. Their offensive line is just okay. That's why I was very confused. As much as I respect Dave Canales, who I think is going to be a good head coach in this league and is a leader of men, that that Rico Dowdle touched the ball 10 times and only 6 carries. They were in the game a lot. It wasn't like they fell behind, 20-0, and they had to sit there and throw the ball. So, if I'm Carolina right now, this is the question, the eternal question that every NFL team has to ask itself. And we as fans, we sit there and scream, get rid of that guy, get rid of that guy, get rid of that guy. That's fine. But in life, remember this. Ask first, who am I going to replace him with? You hate the head coach. That's fine. Who are you going to replace him with? You hate the quarterback. That's fine. Who are you going to replace him with? There's a lot of positions in this world that you can replace guys with. Quarterback's not one of them. We have in the NFL 3 or 4 elite, everybody loves that word elite, 3 or 4 elite guys, maybe 10 on a regular Sunday that are above average. And after that, there's just not enough of them. So Carolina says to themselves, okay, we invested a first-round pick. This is his 3rd year. It's not really happening. We don't see him as the face of the franchise moving forward. Okay, you going to trade for Mac Jones? Who else is a reclamation? You're going to bring in Justin Fields like everybody and think that you can be the team to fix? I mean, there's just not that many options for teams to bring somebody in. So a lot of times, even though you want great, you got to settle for good because you don't want bad. I mean, that's just really what's happening around the league is like Geno Smith, even though I know there's a lot of problems with the Raiders, but Geno Smith has been horrible for the Raiders. If you have a horrible quarterback you just cannot get it done, you just can't win in this league. You can win with average quarterback play to a certain extent if you have a really good defense. You certainly cannot be elite unless you have one of the better quarterbacks in the league. That's just kind of how it works. So Carolina is going to have to ask themselves a question at the end of the year. Can we do better? And all the Carolina fans, I'm sure, are going to scream and yell and go, yeah, of course we can do better. All right, well, how are you going to do that? You're going to be in the middle of the first round with these wins. Maybe you get 7-8 wins on the year. Congratulations, and that's progress. But you're not going to be bad enough to get Fernando Mendoza out of Indiana, or I'm not a big Dante Moore guy out of Oregon. I think he's got to go back and play a little bit more. Whatever quarterback it is that you like, you're not going to be bad enough to get that guy. Is there going to be one that's going to go to the middle of the round? Do you want to start over at the position? Or are you going to be one of those guys that says, look at all these resurrection projects in Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold and maybe Mac Jones and all these different guys that developed later, just took them a little bit more time to develop. Do we think that Bryce Young is going to do that? Personally, if I'm Carolina, I don't think he's going to develop into that type of a quarterback, but I don't see something, especially if I'm sitting in the middle of the first round, where I can do better. Like I said, who's going to be available in this offseason? Guys that, Mac Jones might be the best opportunity that comes around. Do you think, is Mac Jones going to be better than Bryce Young? Maybe. He's in the Kyle Shanahan system who makes everybody look great. So, by the way, 49er fans in the middle of this game are like, I saw it on social media, bring in Mac Jones. Mac Jones is not coming off the bench for Brock Purdy, even if he throws 3 first-half interceptions. It is not happening. So anyway, love to get your thoughts on that. I don't think Bryce Young is it. I don't think he's him. I don't think he's the man for Carolina, and I don't think he can take him very far. But in the NFL, what you have to ask yourself, especially at the quarterback position where there's not even enough of these guys to go around anyway, is who's better? Who are you going to get that's better? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Are you going to draft somebody? Who's the next resurrection project? You're going to get Anthony Richardson from the Colts and think, oh, we can fix him? No, maybe. I mean, maybe that's what Carolina is going to do, because the problem that you find is now the money happens. Like Bryce Young, even as a number 1 overall pick, is not making a boatload of money yet, but it's the same quandary that the 49ers found themselves in, and they didn't blink twice. You're going to have to give Bryce Young $50 million. Ready to give Bryce Young $50 million? I'm not. But at some point, they're going to have to make a decision and say, he's our guy, or we can do better. We can do better for less. You know, Geno Smith from the Raiders and think that he just had an offseason? I think that he's 35 years old and he's just not good. So it's difficult at the quarterback position because you pay good, great. You pay great, phenomenally. And you really have to hit rock bottom to get out of that whole thing. Aaron Rodgers is going to retire and should. So he's not going to be an option. I mean, what else? You're going to go get Joe Flacco? I mean, what is Carolina going to do? There's just not a lot of options out there. Key stats from tonight's game, we showed you that. But again, the biggest stat that jumps out at me is 3 first-half turnovers, 3 points for Carolina. Christian McCaffrey had 31 touches. The best offensive player for Carolina had 10. Rico Dowdle, 6 carries, 4 receptions. He just can't get that done. And then it gets kind of overshadowed. The 3 interceptions in the first half by Brock Purdy that everybody's screaming about. Jared Brown had 2 interceptions. And if you're a 49ers fan, you know this. If he starts playing well and the corners are playing well, this was the thing at the beginning of the season that we were all looking at when Bosa was healthy, when Warner was healthy, and when Mikael Williams was healthy. And you say, hey, the front 7 should be fine and kind of mature. It's that back end that's making you nervous. Well, all of a sudden, Upton Stout, by the way, the rookie third-round pick out of Western Kentucky, he was great for the Niners tonight. That back end is playing really well, and they almost have to carry the front because the front, I'll say this again, this is the biggest stat of the night as we're looking at key stats. Impress your friends with this, especially if you're a Niners fan. The late sack by Cleve Farrell in the fourth quarter was the first sack the 49ers had in 86 pass drop backs. That's why when I'm thinking about Bryce Young, I'm like, you didn't have a ton of pressure on you, and you still couldn't make plays tonight. You had 3 turnovers. You still couldn't score more than 9 points. I mean, if I'm the Carolina Panthers and I'm in the front office and I'm looking at the game tonight, I'm watching that game from a cushy booth tonight. I'm going, huh? 9 points. He got 3 turnovers. 9 points. His agents call him and he wants $50 million a year. No. I can't do that. But I don't know if I can do better. Anyway, I'm not going to go back to that. So there are your key stats of the night. Let me give you a couple of things before we go to that whole punch thing. Couple of things from post-game. Here's Kyle Shanahan giving love to the 49ers defense. Again, all those injuries, no Fred Warner, no Nick Bosa, third-string linebacker Curtis Robinson. Can't get to the quarterback, but somehow they still, with the 3 turnovers, held Carolina to 9 points. Here's Kyle Shanahan post-game talking about it.
Awesome job. The whole D did. Just especially overcoming those 3 turnovers. I mean, when you do that, especially I believe one was right there in the red zone. We got the pick. The other one we held him to a field goal, I think. But it was huge. He did awesome game plan, and the guys played at a high level too.
Did you feel this week that there was some carryover and confidence from the defense after their performance last week that they were able to bring it to this week?
I mean, I feel like these guys have been playing a while together. I mean, just ever since losing Fred and stuff, it's been a bunch of young guys, guys who haven't had their ops yet, and I think each week you can feel them in practice get better and better. Now, it's not always that result on Sunday or on Monday, but today it was. I thought last week it was, and we all know it was a rough fourth quarter, but these last 2 games I thought we've really improved.
Yeah, I would agree 100% with Kyle Shanahan on the really improved. And again, to just go back to training camp for the 49ers, Robert Saleh said they might have to start 7 or 8 rookies. Said there by this point of the season, he thought they were going to be a really good defense. But Nick Bosa gets hurt. Fred Warner gets hurt. Tatum Bethune gets hurt. Mikael Williams gets hurt. At this point, with health, I would think, and I showed you the number before, the Rams are there, the Seahawks are there, the Niners are there. I would feel good about where the Niners are. But with this defense, I honestly, I don't know how Robert Saleh is doing it. I don't. They're not getting to the quarterback at all. I already gave you the number. The linebackers, Curtis Robinson is a 3rd-string linebacker, and at the beginning of the season, it was like D. Winters, and Winters has been good, not great. I thought Winters was going to be a little bit better. He's just been okay since Warner left. That's hard. Being the second guy and Fred Warner taking him a bunch of attention, it's a lot easier. Now your D. Winters, a lot is expected of you, but the offense knows that. And then, like I said, at the beginning of the year, I was nervous about the defensive backfield, but Renardo Green has really stepped up. Lenore is an elite corner in this league. Jared Brown played maybe his best game in the regular season as a pro. They're really playing really well. And then Upton Stout, the rookie out of Western Kentucky, the 3rd-round pick. So they're playing great on the back end. Now, we'll see. The one thing, if you're a 49ers fan, go look at the schedule. Shedeur Sanders is coming up next, one of the most overrated stories in all of the league. Defense won that game against the Raiders. They had 10 sacks. Myles Garrett had 3. You'd have thought that Shedeur Sanders threw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns the way people are acting. They won the game on defense. And by the way, they're playing the worst team in the league. I said the worst team in the league in the Las Vegas Raiders. So I'm not giving him any credit for that win. Anyway, I digress. The schedule, not real difficult down the stretch for the 49ers. So before I say they can't stay in this thing with the Rams, with the Seahawks, they can, because as we said at the beginning of the year, they had the easiest schedule. Team like Carolina's tougher than you think. Bears are on their schedule down the stretch, 8-3. I don't believe in the Bears. So there's still a little bit to be said about those teams. Here's Brock Purdy, his 3 interceptions in the first half. He knows He's got to be better.
I mean, honestly, like the decisions of going to those spots, I was fine with. It's just the execution of throwing a better ball. I feel like on really all of them, I need to just drive the ball a little bit more, and I kept it up in the air too long on multiple of them. But that's on me, man. I thought our receivers did a great job of getting separation and winning, and so it's just execution-wise, I got to throw the ball more on a line and put it there. So,
all right, I've got to freeze this for a minute. Are they paying him extra to wear that jacket? He's got a Toyota-thon jacket on, and it says right in the corner there, Brock Purdy on it. And it must be Toyota-thon days or something. And he's wearing a jacket that says Toyota-thon that nobody else on the team would be caught dead in, but Brock Purdy's wearing it because it's Toyota-thon days, and they're probably paying him extra to wear that jacket. That's an ugly jacket, by the way. I'm not a fashionista. That is an ugly jacket. And it says Toyota-thon Brock Purdy. Only Brock Purdy would wear that jacket. I know it says his name on it, but let's say it said anybody's name on it. Only Brock would wear that. By the way, look at his face right there. He's just like, God, I played awful, and we still won. Boy, that's nice. Anyway, there's Brock Purdy. Probably more information than you wanted to know. All right. This is the story at the end, which, of course, is always going to be the big story because somebody got, kicked in, hit in the nuts and then kicked in the nuts and all this kind of stuff. So essentially, if you didn't see it at the end of the game, do I have that video? I guess I did not load it. Essentially what happened is Trayvon Moehrig, the safety, former Raider of the Panthers, late in the game, and I think it was frustration. He said after the game it wasn't, but he square punched with a left to the nuts, to the groinal region of Juwan Jennings. Jennings at the end of the game gets into a bit of a fracas with him, and they get into a big fight. And Kyle Shanahan was asked about it after the game. This might be one of the best post-game answers of all time. Here's Kyle on what happened between Juwan Jennings and Trayvon Moehrig of the Panthers.
On the last series?
Yeah, the guy took a cheap shot and hit him in the balls, and I was real proud of Juwan for not losing his mind out there and getting him to the sideline.
What other coach says it like that?
The Juwan on the last series?
Yeah, the guy took a cheap shot and hit him in the balls, and
Kyle's outstanding. If you don't know Kyle Shanahan, he just doesn't know how to lie, really. I mean, he does to a certain extent over injuries and everything. But I remember interviewing him when it was the day he was hired. And Tom Tolbert, radio personality in San Francisco, if you don't know, was him and I were doing a show together, and Kyle came in and he was in his suit and slicked. And that's the last time I've seen Kyle look like that. We talked to him about something, and we were talking about the Super Bowl, actually, being the Falcons and the Patriots, because he was hired right after that. And we turned the mics off and we were just BSing back and forth. And Kyle just flat out said, look, man, I'm not really good at lying. I'm going to have to kind of work on that, but I'm not really good at lying. And, he just basically said, I kicked him in the balls or hit him in the balls. It was a square left, actually, if you go back and you look at it. If you go to, by the way, Pro Football at PFB Wire, and if you're watching right now, at PFB Wire on X, I have that whole video up there, and you can see it. I spliced it together from the time that Moehrig hit him in the balls to then what happened after the game. If you missed it, that's at PFB Wire on X, and you can go back and watch that right now as you can see there, where we are on the board tonight. Nut punch. So there you go. This is one of my favorite people. My good friend Chris is here tonight. Hit me in the nuts, then we throw in hands. That's exactly. I mean, I'm not blaming. Hey, Chris, it's great to see you. Yeah, you're throwing hands. Hell yeah, you're throwing hands. You kidding me? Crazy hands. Like, dude, come on. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. You guys tell me. I mean, there's just kind of, I know you don't like somebody, maybe you get in a fight with somebody, and this goes back to even when you're young. Like, there is even certain rules. I mean, you're not going to scratch somebody's eyes out. And again, we're not talking Anchorman where it's like you don't touch the hair. But, when you fight somebody, it's just nuts are off limits, man. The baby maker is it's off limits. I mean, isn't that kind of what it is, right? I mean, that's kind of the one rule, right? I don't know. I think it is. I'm not a fighter. I'm not a lover, but I'm certainly not a fighter. But I thought that was kind of an unwritten rule, but maybe it's not. I could be wrong. You tell me. But anyway, that was not cool. So nut punch. And finally, around the NFL, a few different things. I told you Baker Mayfield to sprained AC joint in his non-throwing shoulder. I'm left-handed, so I just pointed to my right hand. He's right-handed, which would mean his left. So we shall see. They play the Cardinals this weekend. They could win with Teddy Bridgewater. They could win with Doug Williams. They could win with Tom Brady. They could win with any former quarterback, and I'm talking Brady right now, of the Bucs against Arizona, who's got to travel down to Florida. It's just how affected will the Buccaneers be if that's a long-term injury? Because anybody who watched Sunday Night Football, when the Rams whipped up on the Buccaneers, if they don't have him, good story, Teddy Bridgewater and all, but if they don't have Baker Mayfield, they will not be a factor in the playoffs, and they may not win the NFC South, even though the Panthers didn't look great tonight. Panthers could back into that thing. Hell, the Falcons could back into that thing. What do they have, 5 wins? And Kirk Cousins is better than Michael Penix at this point, and he's the quarterback again now with the Falcons. Other things around the NFL, let me play this for you. Here's Pete Carroll. I have a little video of Pete Carroll, or at least I did. Maybe I lost it already. Let's see, where's Pete Carroll? I might have lost it. Pete Carroll was talking about firing Chip Kelly. He said they just didn't end up on the same page. I said this in a short earlier today. It doesn't matter what the Raiders do as long as the guy with the bad haircut owns them. It really doesn't matter. I mean, if you're a decision maker and you take that kind of a haircut, what that tells me is you're not a good decision maker, and you shouldn't own an NFL football team because you're a bad decision maker. You think that's a good haircut, you're a bad owner. In all seriousness, though, fire Pete Carroll, fire Chip Kelly, fire the special teams coordinator. They fired the assistant offensive coordinator today. Fire everybody in the building. It doesn't matter. If Mark Davis still owns the team, and don't tell me that Tom Brady is going to somehow miraculously help this team. If Mark Davis owns the team, the Raiders aren't going to be good. So there's that. And then finally, the Giants, and this is so amazing to me, and I don't think there's anything like it in NFL history. The Giants have had 5 fourth quarter leads of 10 points or more. Look at that. Now, they had that 14-second lead with Dallas, and that was unbelievable. 14-3 Saints, 26-8 Broncos, that's the famous one. 20-10 against the Bears, and this Sunday, 27-17 against the Lions. 5 fourth quarter leads for the New York Giants, all of them blown, so they finally fire their defensive coordinator. I'm sure that's the answer. They're going to do a total house cleaning in the offseason, are the Giants. I like a couple of pieces that they have, but they have a long way to go. They do have some nice pieces on defense. There's no doubt about it. And I like what Jackson Dart can bring to the table. I like Scatterbo. Obviously, Neighbors' injury. I mean, they've had a ton of injuries offensively. But to lose those kind of games, 5 games, we have a 10-point fourth quarter lead, that just means your team doesn't know how to win. And they need to come in. Like, look, let's go back to SALEH for a minute. SALEH went to New York with the Jets, so I don't know that SALEH would go back to the Giants. But if I'm SALEH and you're saying, okay, it's bad situations, the Giants have won before with their ownership. They don't have the worst ownership in the league, like a team like Arizona or a team like Vegas. And SALEH could look at that defense with the type of guys with Carter and Thibodeau and Lawrence and those type of guys and fix the defense. And then all of a sudden you look at the Giants and you say, okay, Scatterbo, Dart, their offensive line needs fixing. There's no doubt about it. Neighbors comes back. The Giants are the type of team that really aren't that far away. They need some more offensive talent. They need some more offensive line talent, a couple more pieces defensively, especially in the defensive backfield. But they've got some pieces there. And a guy like SALEH, if he would, maybe has PTSD from being in New York and doesn't want to go back there, but he could be a guy that could, I think, quickly turn around the Giants. And they don't have horrid ownership, and players will sign there because they want to play in New York. New York could be a team that could turn around quite quickly. Now, that's a tough division. Dallas is Dallas. They're not in it this year. Philly's going to bounce back, even though, like I said, I think there's something weird going there. I don't know the direction of Washington in the future, although here's the thing about Washington. They burst onto the scene last year with Jaden Daniels. They're the oldest team in the NFL. Guys like Bobby Wagner, and they got Debo on that. They got an older team. So I don't know what their shelf life is there, but my point is that I think a guy like SALEH, now that I think about it, if he would go back to New York, which I don't think he would, not going to the Jets, he'd be going to the Giants. That could be a team if they brought in the right guy, and you get Jackson Dart healthy, you get Scatterbo healthy, you get Neighbors healthy, and you get a mind that's got some of those defensive pieces, which they have, are decent, somebody that can help you win close games. 5 games, 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. My God. So those are your stories around the NFL. Pete Carroll and the Raiders continue to be a mess. News on Baker Mayfield, which could affect the NFC and certainly affect the NFC South, and the deal that's going on with the Giants firing their defensive coordinator. I think we have covered everything. The 49ers win 20-9. Your live Monday Night Football recap here at PFB Wire, Pro Football Wire on YouTube. Please make sure that you subscribe, hit those likes, and make sure that you have those alerts on because we're always sending stuff out like we did today. I think we had like 5 shorts out today based on Week 12 on Sunday, so you don't want to miss any of those things. And then make sure that you hit us on social media at PFB Wire and all those social medias that are underneath, but especially X and Instagram, because we put a ton of stuff out on those 2 social media channels, specifically with news, videos, breaking news, stories, funny stuff, all those kind of things at PFB Wire. And we cover all the teams in the NFL. So make sure that you are covered on that. I love people jumping into the chat room today. Old friends of mine that have been around for a long time with the channel, like Chris and 54 and Dom. Who else do we have that hung out tonight with us? 007. It is good to see you, my friend. JP from the 510 was the first one in here as well. So a bunch of good people from the channel for a long time. Please tell all your friends and enemies. Doing regular shows again. So it is great, as people are saying, good to hear your voice. It is great to be heard. So we're doing regular shows on the regular. And again, we do about 4 shows a week now, 4 or 5 shows a week. Send out tons of shorts and responses to things that are going around the NFL as well. And then, like I said, we're on all social media channels, and we'll be launching the website shortly. So make sure you're hitting us up at PFB Wire, specifically on X, Instagram, other social media channels as well. And on YouTube, it's at Pro Football Wire. Any questions, comments, thoughts, put them right underneath the show here. We'll get back to you. Or a great place to hit me up as well is on X at PFB Wire, or my personal handle at John Lund Radio. 49ers win it 20-9. Thank you for tuning in to the show. We'll talk to you tomorrow, and make sure you have those alerts on at Pro Football Wire on YouTube and on X, because we post constantly when news breaks throughout the day. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday night.